All right, Israel, giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai by Hashem Rakah Kadash. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, double honors to the apostle, elder bishops, great millstone, much salutation to the brothers, teaching word for the hopeful elect, soon to be the elect, most high will. Hopeful, still elect, shalom, blessings. Men, women, and children. Gonna just get right into it, man. I'm gonna call this the new Negro mentality, I guess. I'll read what the new Negro is, or what it means. And in the scripture say there's no new thing under the sun. Like, you can't be new anything. You still Jake is still a slave in this world of especially American under his captivity. You know, as it's going to say, mention self-identity or whatever. Now, you have Jakes in here that expresses himself, but I mean, even look at the industry, man. That is modeled after what the so-called white man is, so to speak, encouraging them to do by more money and so-called better contracts. And you got niggas wearing dresses and bending over and carrying purses and all that, and raising their children as sodomites and whores, or what have you. But I'll read the Negro. A new Negro definition is a term that refers to a shift in the self-perception and public presentation of African Americans, particularly during the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s. And you got a thing called the Roaring Twenties, and that's kind of going into that also. It represents a move away from the stereotypes and limited roles assigned to black people under Jim Crow and towards a more assertive, self-confident, and culturally expressive identity. This concept was popularized by Alain Locke, I guess, in his 1925 anthology, The New Negro. Key aspects of the New Negro include increased self-respect and racial pride. The New Negro embraced their African heritage and cultural traditions, which were not Africans, were Hebrew Israelites. We were just captive in Africa. We dwelled in Africa, even going back to Moses, under the Pharaoh, raised as his grandson, so to speak, so-called, but he refused to be called that, and even slew an Egyptian for his Hebrew brother. So we're not Africans. And cultural traditions rejecting the shame and self-denial associated with the old Negro. And in some ways, the old Negro was better than the new Negro, because at least the old Negro knew he was oppressed, and he knew who his oppressors were. And then who gave rights to the new Negro? How did they get it? Well, here's another thing. Militant advocacy for civil rights. The new Negro movement, closely linked to the NAACP, actively challenged racial discrimination, segregation, and violence. How do they challenge it? By petitions, voting, protesting, only for the rights given by the so-called white man, their oppressor. I mean, who legalizes things? Who passes things into, signs a bill where it passes as a law to not have this done, and not, the so-called white man. He rules the world. Emphasis on cultural expression. The Harlem Renaissance saw a flourishing of African American art, literature. That's what the 1920s, the Roaring Twenties, was about. Music and theater with writers, artists, and you had something like the Apollo Theater, which I think started in 1940, 50. It was owned by a so-called white man, and he sold it. A so-called black man bought it. and it turned into the Apollo amateur night at the Apollo Theater, which they have music. It's a theater of music and writers and artists and so forth. But it's more entertainment than anything. It's more entertainment than um, it says intellectual expressing their experiences. It's no, there were no. It was only talent, and I'm not taking away from it because Jake has talent, but it wasn't teaching us anything. It was just we were enjoying the entertainment that they provided. But guess what? The Apollo Theater was sold. Just like you have things that came later, like Soul Train with Don Cornelius, and he sold Soul Train. Just like BET was Black Entertainment Television, and it was sold. You know, now you have all kind of ratchet artists on that platform that influences our people to do wickedness. You know, you move on down political engagement. The new Negro actively participated in the political process, advocating for voting rights. See, and it tells you in the scriptures, it says when you have a king, have him of your own people. Now that little Obama phase, which Obama is an African, 8-year term, he didn't do nothing. Niggas are still in the ghetto, and it's gotten worse. And look, Obama's still in that circle. He's still in that what do you call it? That field of politics where he's connected to the politicians of today. Like they still meet up and they still have they still wine and dine, but he can't do nothing about these Haitians getting um, getting gaffled up by the as illegal immigrants, deported back to Haiti or wherever the authorities want to take them. I think even when Obama was in office, and it's an he's an old, he's old news, but I'm just making a point of I think black and Latinos were a lot of black and Latinos were voting for him because a lot of Latinos they will admit that they have some African ancestry, but they don't even know that they're from the tribe of Israel. They're one of the tribes of Israel, whether it be Puerto Ricans, the Ephraimites, whether it be Mexicans, the Israelites. But that's a part of finding some kind of identity. When you're faced with oppression, you want to belong to some, and that's what they try to point us out like that too. Like we're just, saying this so-called, that the Son of God is so-called black man to just find some kind of identity. No, it's just the truth, what it says in the Bible. Because even though we have that identity, we're still treated as niggas, and that doesn't help the fact that we're still in captivity. So why would we profess that just, for some kind of reverence, some kind of gain in this world, and it doesn't do anything for us. But it enlightens us. On the righteous side, it enlightens us, and it tells the truth about our history, and to let us know that we're the sons of God. But I would say if anybody would make a claim, with an identity factor it would benefit them in this world. That's why would they do it? But we know this is a spiritual thing, and it benefits us spiritually. So that lets you know these people are boneheads pretty much. But it says the new Negro actively worked to counter negative stereotypes by portraying African Americans in a more nuanced and complex way. And that came with pride also, where here it is. The new Negro continues to be relevant today as a symbol of black self-determination, cultural pride, and the ongoing struggle for racial justice. What is racial justice, man? To get approved by the so-called white man to be treated equally. There's no equality in this world. There's no equality in the Bible. Deuteronomy 7:6 says you are a special people, a peculiar people, and I've chosen you to be a priest. I've chosen you as a royal priesthood among all the people of the planet Earth, pretty much paraphrasing. There's no equality in the Bible. There's a kingdom. A kingdom means you are part of a kingdom with your brethren, your family, and the rest of the people are servants. What do you think Solomon had? He had servants. And then he said, well, sometimes you can have servants of your own people, but they're not bondmen and bondwomen. And Solomon said that himself. He said, I have my people as servants, but not as bondmen and bondwomen. It's a big difference. Because your servants can eat, your servants can get paid. You'll have your bondmen and bond shit there. You have them serving with rigor. You know? So let me get that scripture. No new thing under the sun. It says, Ecclesiastes 1:9, the thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. So, you had these bougie Negroes back then, and a lot of them were those Jews that was coming against Yahweh Shai. A lot of them were rich or belonging to Commonwealth of Israel that had money. That's why they, that tithe thing, that was of our people. It was of the Jews. It wasn't of these Christians. We were the top people of the earth. Everybody learns from us. So, before this Christianity, we were. Even though we got into paganistic religion and Roman Catholicism and Christianity, what have you, even going to the back in the time of Constantine, the Roman Church, and those administrations. Built on paganism, and it followed. I mean, that's what Paul was telling these churches. Look, y'all following paganistic ways. Y'all need to take all this down, man. Y'all need to, men wearing long hair. They spewed out their freedom, and that's what these Negroes do today. That's what the new Negro is about: self-proclaimed freedom. But yet they'll, for better living, a better, treatment, they'll go out there and vote, and they'll ask their oppressors, could you, pass this bill, and a lot of other different things, man. So that, Jake really is a homeborn slave, and it says that in the scriptures. You can go to 10 too. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It had been already of old time, which was before us. There's no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are come with those that shall come after. So, these authorities and these people set above us, that happened in the Roman Empire too. We were under the Greek Empire too. And those same influences were there. Homeborn. And I'll get the definition of homeborn slave. See what the Google says. Jeremiah 2:14 is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? We can go to that word homeborn. See what it means. Well, it says Bayath means house.
Bayath.
So they grew up in the house of America. America is basically a house, a big ass house. a big ass prison. There you go, prison, place, household, a dungeon, dwelling habitation, and they made this dwelling habitation Sheol, which is another word for grave. If I'm not mistaken. But anyway, yeah. So now they grew up in the house of America, you know, and they what Most High said, you got to take care of your own household. You got to get your families together, man. You got to. There's no fathers in the house, but still they're talking about a black community. Still they're talking about, uh, you know, getting better jobs, a better uh, system, a way of, being treated by, by voting and by, a method of, what does it say in here? It says, of these establishments like the NAACP, you know, and it hasn't done anything for us, man. Look, challenge racial discrimination, segregation. We were better off segregated. So the new Negro is a a homeborn slave that's uh, you know attached to basically the elements of what's provided by his oppressor. You know, which is better jobs, which is better housing, which is freedom, which is, and if you go to the images, here's the book that it mentions from by Elaine Locke. I might be saying his name wrong. Alan, it should seem like it should be Alan, but the new Negro. Look, he's in a suit and tie. You know, and two, through this unicorn, which is the internet, they have provided you with platforms of social media, as a means of freedom and self-expression, like it says of the new Negro, to have our people believe that they can become this new Negro. They can be writers and be scientists, doctors, and lawyers, and then you find out, like, well, you got to be with the system. You got to be poisoning people too in the medical field. You got to be, if you become a lawyer, you got to lie too to, um, you know, what do you call it, to defend criminals, because they defend criminals too. Like I said, if you got enough money as a murderer, you have enough money somehow, or some kind of support, financial support, you can get off. You hire Jewish people, you hire the, the Amalekites, the small hats to plead your case, to defend your case. You could get off. You could probably more like easily get off. So the new Negro would be that. He would put himself in the justice system, so-called justice system, to become a lawyer, to try to change the jurisdiction of this American oppressed way of a life that has been an enemy to so-called black people and Latino Native Americans, and try to but still gotta lie and go by the narrative of what's set up by this jurisdiction so-called justice system overall, you know, which is not really justice at all. You know, what it say about the just? It says the just shall live by faith. That's the real justice. It's not by these programs and these documents, you know, even though we'll come out with some documents, you know, to express, you know, the truth, certain levels, you know, but really, the just is lived by faith. Faith. Uh, it says Hebrews 10 and 38. Now the just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. You know, and Most High is not for this world. It said friendship with the world is enmity with the Most High. It said, you know, Yahweh Shai even said he prayed not for the world, but for those that are his, that are in the world and not of the world, that he called out of the world, out of darkness to his marvelous light. He was not for the Roman Empire, you know. He's not for this Roman Empire. This is the last leg of Rome, a reincarnation of Roman Empire, right here in America. And they have parallel laws. If you go through their laws, they're very similar, parallel. What did it say? A king of thy own people. Let me see if I can pull it up. Choose a Deuteronomy 17 and 15. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose, one from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee, man. You know? So why are they voting for their oppressors? You know, that's what the new Negro is based on. You know, trying to vote himself into, and if you go to Black Wall Street, that was happening with that. You know, they you know, by contractual agreements, by certain leadership of that movement, they coexisted and worked along with so-called white men to have those things privileged, so they could build on and possess merchandise, possess, um, you know, own, it's like your own businesses and possess land and all that. But what happened to that? It was bombed. You know, they were shot down, and it's easy for them to blame us for anything. You know, and they'll do it again. And they did it during the time of Rome. You know, when Nero blamed the Jews, that was us. It said he blamed the Christians. I think he used that word Christian, but you know who the real Christians were. It was us. And now, you know, you know, Trump is in office, which we believe is reincarnation of Nero, and he'll blame Israelites again. He's doing that now. Like, as he put into law to deport, and is mostly our people, if not all, you know, and it's probably a few Italians in there, Englishmen, whatever, you know, but really we're the target, and he's kind of, you know, setting blame on our people as, you know, if they're the troublemakers. You know, they're the ones that's taking all the jobs. They're the ones that's, you know, causing all the, you know, the drug activity, what have you. We can't trust them. They're from a foreign country, you know, but they deal with these foreign countries all the time. You know, and they fund these foreign countries. They fund these leaders of these foreign countries. You know. So as you see, like when I read the definition of the new Negro, self-proclaimed, independence, assertive and another word for that is bougie. So what? They don't need the Most High. You know, they have proclaimed themselves as more dignified than the oppressed man, more dignified than the poor man. And Yahweh Shai did in the scripture, it says, I have chosen the poor of my people, rich in faith. You know? So if you see anybody that's have a great following and, followed also by, the love of the people because of his status, his riches, his establishment, his big businesses, which hey, that's what women chase. That's what they call power. But the true power is Yahweh. The true power is Yahweh Shai. The true power is this word. It's not in gold and silver. That could be a form of, form and usage of how you can attain things, and it could be, looked at as a great wealth, which they equal to power, but that's not really realistic, man. The moral values is better than attaining riches is better than finding a place in hell in your oppressed state and trying to climb your way in to a better position, through contractual agreements that don't really mean shit. They don't really follow through with that. I mean, even with these contracts that they have with these record companies, they end up getting robbed. And then what? So these are bogus contracts, bogus paper yoke. I mean, it's still a form of slavery, a paper yoke, and then it's about to get digital. But how's the new Negro going to fit into this digital world? I'm wondering what kind of moves the new Negro will make. If there's such thing as a new Negro, I mean, I guess it is. I mean, because you see Negroes like this every day, suit and tie. Maybe Farrakhan is kind of an image to our people as a somewhat new Negro. You know. The doctors, the lawyers, and what they gonna be doing in the near future, protecting this new world order, going into the ways of the new order, or a new world order. And these are the same people that develop families, and and they get stuck in their position of catering to these worldly affairs because they grew up by the means of the system, man. They grew up yoked to this system. And the Most High said, "Be ye not." I think the word for it is unequal yoke. Let me get it. I'm close out with this scripture. Yeah. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. And this is a world full of unbelievers. This American world of these citizens, they just sheep. They just sheeple, man. And they're really unbelievers. You know? For what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness? There's a unrighteousness. There's a lot of adultery, idolatry in this place. Hey, the BT Awards, that's full of idolatry, man. That's full of unrighteousness. But our people, the new Negro, he'll build on that foundation and say, look, this is my business. I own BET. Suit and tie, you know, and say, well, you know, I'm a Christian. No. Well, you're a Christian. You follow Christianity. You're not a true Christian, no. You're not anointed by Mashiach, who is Yahweh Shai. And what communion have light with darkness, man? Anyway, hope it is edifying. Shalom.